By applause, who still remembers the Python 2 to 3 transition? By applause, by applause. In that case, let's thank the documentary sponsors, OpenTeams and JetBrains, for allowing us to take a trip back down memory lane. And now that we have taken a sneak peek at the documentary, let's welcome our 3 panelists on the stage.
Great. We'll start with our questions now. But before that, a quick introduction. So we have a former officer of the US Navy. I had to add that. Paul Everitt. And he's now the head of developer advocacy at JetBrains. And he's focusing on Python and the web. He has also bootstrapped both the Python Software Foundation and the Plone Foundation.
A hand for Paul. Our second panelist is Armin Ronacher. Thank you. A former VP of Platform for Sentry and the founder of a yet unannounced startup, which, I guess it kind of makes it an announced startup now. And also, Armin has made a number of significant contributions to the open source community, most notably the creation of the Flask framework. So, a hand for Armin.
Our third panelist is Brett Cannon, and he has been a Python core developer for over 20 years. In his own words, Brett has been around long enough. You can thank or blame him for a bunch of stuff, yes. And he also gave a keynote yesterday, which I'm sure most of us joined, or can we watch later?
We will open the floor for questions from the for questions from the audience. Soon there will be microphones over there for you. But let's start with asking some of our own questions to the panelists. And Brett, maybe starting with you, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself? What role has the Python community had on your personal and professional growth? What's Python community for you?
Oh, geez, start with an easy one, why don't you? It's meant a lot. Just have here with friends of mine, more friends in the audience. I've said many times that the Python core team has taught me how to program. I mean, I knew before, but I learned how to professionally do it from them and how to have good practices and such, and just how to do it. It's a weird little story, but I think it helped impress my wife while we were dating, because she told a friend of hers yes, and this who it was, and she said, "Wow, that's epic." So I probably won't make some early brownie points with my wife. I owe my career to it. I was lucky enough to get internships early on because of being a core developer, and then friends getting jobs at the right places. Like as the document said, I interned under Guido. I was able just to email him, hey, can I just be an intern for you? He's like, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, so I owed a lot. Basically, I owed a ton of friendships and a career, and yeah.
That's incredible. Armin, do you have a similar story, a different story?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw my lightning talk yesterday, but I shared a little bit of my history in this community. So very similar to Brett, my career is almost entirely supported by work that I did in the community and then the community embracing this. And through the Python community, I also met my wife. I don't know if she was impressed by what I did, but it was like it felt like a lot of the things in my life came out of what the Python community did, and it also includes a lot of I mentioned this yesterday, but Michael Ford was a very important person because he was the first one to sort of show me at the conference, actually, also the same conference I met you. And then, like, you only need this one or two sort of inceptive moments to bring you into it. Like in my case, it was a book by a community member that brought me to Python in the first place. So it's really like a domino effect. You start somewhere, you stick with it, and you can really get a very fulfilled life out of it.
In 1993, I didn't have to learn Perl. At that time, I had yet to marry my wife, and I took an 80286 laptop on a vacation to France with a PostScript copy of the Python tutorial, taught myself Python, and she still married me anyway, and she's here at the conference with me. I will say it, yes, thank you. I'll say it this way. Seeing this video, this gift that Ida and CultRepo have given us, it is something. I get to sit on stage with the two of you. At EuroPython, which is a beautiful and lovely achievement of the Python community as much as the language itself. I got to talk with Marc-Andre and Jacob earlier today, and what they created in 2002 with Denis Frere at Charleroi. And I have gotten to lead a Python life. And it is a wonderful and humbling experience.
That's really amazing. It's just very obvious that we all truly stayed for the community as all of you did. So our next question to all of you, but I'll start with Paul. So about the transition, Python 2 to 3, that project, did you expect it to be this way? And it's very interesting that you're sitting with Armin and the blog post that he made. Was there any sober assessments? Did you expect that it would be this crazy and all?
It's an interesting question for me in particular because a few years before that, my company did it and died. So I am not going to make the mistake of asking, have you ever heard of Zope? Because only Jürgen and Jan are in the audience. They're the only ones that would know the name of that. A few years before that, we tried to do a 2 to 3, way more ambitious, and died. And a couple of years later, when this all got cranked up with Python 3000, there was a worry about it. The industry at that time was going through its little Java moment, and a lot of VC-backed businesses were converting from something to Java and dying. So if you hear a common note about and dying, there was a lot of worry about the and dying part. But it's amazing to me to see this video and hear Brett Cannon tell us that it was over in 2020.
How about you, Armin? Your blog post, the essays look very interesting. What do you recall about that project?
I mean, I have a lot of memories from this time, but I think that, well, like for me a little bit, one of the moments was like I kind of exited out of this community in part of and obviously I'm here, right? This is like it's not that I didn't come back, but like I felt at one point that I just really felt like the right path is to find a transition where you can use both one unified code base for both Python 2 and Python 3. And that was, for a while, was a very, very unpopular opinion. And so I started writing and I shared all of this. And the challenge a little bit in this, and I learned this in life, is that when you are counterculture in a way, then you're going to attract all of sort of this negative feedback. Like I heard a lot of like people like me shouldn't sort of share this stuff because you really should support this transition in a way. And that was not a great experience. But with time, I think that there was at least some truth to that, and it felt better, I would say. Like a lot of this sort of unhappy people found other angles to get their satisfaction out. And so now I actually mostly remember that it didn't die. Because that was my big worry, is that this is a community that built a really good thing. And I also saw, because I had a lot of friends that entered into startups, and there was a very clear competitor for Python showing up in my web development circles, and there was Node.js. And so it felt like, well, if I already have to do the migration from Python 2 to Python 3, maybe I just do this fancy new fancy thing that is Node.js, right? And seeing that didn't fully play out, and I think to a large degree it's because the data science community got so much value out of Python that it was like impossible to imagine that doesn't exist in a company. So it was like maybe my community of like web developers like getting a little bit less popular, but you have this other new community come in, and that is what I most remember. It's like there are so many more people coming in.
Great. How about you, Brett?
So I obviously lived it. Being a core dev since 2003, I was there for the transition, and to be frank, it's partially my fault, hence the comment earlier about how you can blame me for lots of things. I mean, obviously when we started it, as Guido said in the documentary, and Barry, that we knew it was going to be bumpy, but we didn't think it was going to be that bumpy. So we were effectively naive in the end, and luckily, I think, we realized not the mistake of Python 3, but the mistake of how we handled the transition and made it a little too abrupt, honestly. And as Armin pointed out, he advocated for like the U prefix and other things. And other people came forward and said like, hey, if you add this, it'd make the transition easier. And some of us, such as myself, put in a lot of time and effort to try to make the transition as easy as possible for people to get to the point where companies as big as Instagram could make the transition and be successful. And I'm glad we pulled it off. I'm glad we got to a place where Armin, as you mentioned, felt good coming back, and it's still not leading to a death spiral of the language and the community, especially, because, I mean, that's the most important thing. Yeah, it was an interesting time. But we got through it, we got to the end of it, and I think we came out better for it, and I think we all learned a lot of lessons and continue to move forward.
Can I say one more thing? Because I did sort of look for other things, right? I looked at the Rust community quite a bit. And there was a period of time where people sort of like always put like, oh, we shouldn't do another Python 3. But I think that one of the interesting parts about this transition is that it did actually ultimately work. It also showed a little bit what not to do, and it left actually, I think, a very, very good lesson for many other communities to look at, both in a positive and a negative way. And I think that we should also remember there was Perl 5 to 6, which did never go that way. And it's not that Perl died, but it's like they became two languages, they became two communities, which is also not something that you want. So I think that we also had a positive impact on other communities to look at this as a learning example.
Well, shifting gears a bit, Brett, I see you're wearing your PyLadies t-shirt.
Yes.
And I've heard that you came for the language but stayed for the community.
So I've been told.
You told yourself, I think.
Yes, I did.
And we want everyone to be able to say that for themselves. So what can we do, what can the community do to actively support everyone in their minorities, for example, women, as we saw in the documentary? How can we support them? How can we help everyone be a part of the Python community?
I mentioned this in the documentary as well. Guido's example of trying to be open and welcoming and just doing what you can to make sure people feel that the door is not only open to them to be a part of this community, but trying to actively welcome them in is important and really the key thing here, right? And as Mary had said, it's showing up and showing that people are there, but also directly engaging with people and just like, oh, yeah, you can be here. You can be a part of this. There's no reason why you can't come and be a member of this community and contribute in any way, shape, or form that you feel is good, even if your contribution is literally just being here and being a part of it. And I think that's really the key thing, is not overthinking it and thinking it has to be some massive grand gesture and feeling overwhelmed. It's as little as literally just saying, yeah, you belong here too, come on in, and just coming and being a part of it.
Armin, do you have any additional thoughts?
Charity Mayers, she's the, I think, CTO, but she's the founder of Honeycomb, which is a pretty interesting company, and she has an awesome blog that I recommend reading. And one of the things that she said was, you have to kind of be successful, which sounds a little bit ridiculous, but people imitate success, right? And so one of the ways in which this works really well is try to become a role model. This is hard for me in this case. This is not particularly helping, but you can bring people in and then show how successful they were, and there will be other people that want to come after them. And so, like, just bringing visibility to the successes will inspire other people, because I mean, this role model thing is real, right? We always see other people, and we're like, this works, this doesn't work, and we want to be like them. So I think, like, just helping people that don't have the visibility yet, but probably deserve the visibility is a really good way to bring this.
Paul, I heard you have some things to share.
Sure. First, in that clip when Marietta is speaking at Pie Ladies, and there's the cut to the little girl, Ida, you got me on that one. I definitely choked up on that one. That was awesome. The last thing Pie Ladies needs from me is any suggestions, but that's never stopped me before. So I got 3 things, and remember to give the signal if I go too long. The first one is get out of the way. People like us from an earlier period, if there is a chair in leadership, get up, get out of it, and create an empty chair so that the next generation can take over. Then, number 2, support. More importantly, be subordinate. I coach a girls' sport, girls lacrosse, fastest sport on 2 feet. And a few years ago, I decided I would never coach again unless I was the assistant to a young woman. First, my daughter, Alele Bleu, then a former player of mine. And 2 cool side effects of this. Parents go to the old hobbit-looking white dude to have something to say, and I say, go talk to the boss. That sends a message. Then we're in the huddle, and the coach says, no, Coach Paul, that's not the right thing. We're going to do this instead. Sends a message to each one of those 13, 14-year-old girls that that's normal. It's okay for the old white hobbit-looking dude to get corrected by a young woman. So be subordinate. And then the third one is celebrate. If we can help be a part of celebrating, for example, Pie Ladies, how about we pledge to have a Kickstarter to get Ida to tell the story of Pie Ladies? I think Pie Ladies is a badass story. It needs its own film. I was talking with Georgie about this, 350 chapters. It feels like Python is Pie Ladies, or Pie Ladies is Python at this point, generating the next generation of leadership. So for those 3 things, I think there are things we can do if we understand that our job in this now is to make the next generation successful.
Thank you, Paul.
Great submissions. So now to our last question. Then after that, the audience can ask questions. So this is mainly to Armin, but all of you could add up. So Armin, what's your take on Python's future in terms of artificial intelligence? Yes.
It looks pretty good by metrics and everything else. This is going to not be a lot of surprise for people who probably read my blog. I do a lot of stuff with AI at the moment and agentic coding and stuff like this. And there's an enormous benefit to being a language that has been established at this moment with a lot of code, with a lot of examples. And I'm in a situation at the moment where people write me emails and they are not programmers because they started using ChatGPT and it likes to generate Flask code. And they have never programmed before, and then sent me an email that should help them. And the problem is, like, I'm actually not an active Flask maintainer anymore. But I had a bunch of emails, and it really confused me. Like, and it's people that are coming into programming have never programmed before, right? They buy ChatGPT for whatever the reason is, and then they figure out that thing can program, and they hear it on the internet somewhere. And if you don't pick a language, it's going to pick JavaScript for the front end maybe, but picks a lot of Python. And so there's just a whole new generation of people that so far don't consider themselves programmers yet, who are pushed into our community. And what I actually think would be great for us as a community is to welcome them, but also be open to the idea that people will come into this ecosystem through AI, who have learned it through this thing. And I think the wrong message to send would be to say, like, well, that's not programming, and you're not a programmer just because it's a computer generated for you. Because I think at the end of the day, anyone who programs, and even if it's a machine, they are programmers, and they're going to come into our community.
Thank you. Paul, do you have anything you want to add, or Brett?
Okay, fine, make me go. Well, I don't know, I have a skewed perspective, right? When I got involved with Python, when I became a core developer, I was doing my master's degree in computer science, and people would ask what I did for fun, and I'd say, oh, I work on the Python programming language. And half the time, people would go, huh, what's that? And the other half would be, is that the language where white space matters? Right, so this is just immensely amazing to me, right? The fact that I am in Czechia at a conference organized by people who did not start when I started, have all of you come here from all over the world and just come together to celebrate this community and this language that we all rally around and just act as the connective tissue for this community just boggles my mind. So to me, it's already successful. And if it never became more successful, I'd be extremely, still very happy with where it's ended up. But as Armin said, everything keeps projecting towards more, so that's fantastic, because I just view it as more chances to make more friends and have more wonderful people in this community. So it seems like everything's moving forward and doing great. I think as long as the community continues to be what it is now, that's all I care about. So, and if that means more wonderful people being here, which I hope it does, that's fantastic. But as long as this community stays what it is, that's the important thing to me. So I say we're already successful, and I just hope it just keeps going.
Very well said. First, a meta comment. If you don't follow Armin's blog and YouTube channel, please do, because if you think these spicy hot takes stopped in 2016, that said, I'll echo what Brett said. My wife and I were talking with Deborah just before coming in here. She and I both have an interest in why things happen the way they do. And Brett was alluding to this a little bit. Let me tell you, in 1997, 98, trying to pitch a VC, yeah, thank you, on a Python-backed company is evidence of how far things have come to I mean, during this talk, there will be 3 VCs pitching a Python company somewhere in the world. And so we need to remember the thing that's good. Honestly, I know you said this off the top of your head standing at a podium about come for the language, stay for the community. But remember the stay for the community part. EuroPython is a wonderful success. One of you out there is the next hero of EuroPython. Get involved in the conference, get involved in EuroPython Society, because the PSF and the society are just as much of an achievement as the language itself. Hell yeah. No, but seriously, get involved.
Thank you very much for the threads. And now I think we can open the floor for some questions from the audience. Let's start with the left side of the stage, which should be you.
Hopefully you can hear me. So I'd like to ask about 2 things, and I'd like to get the answer from all of you. What is the thing you like in Python and you think is its advantage over other languages? And then this one thing you just hate and you think should be fixed in Python? Thanks.
Go, man.
All right, fine. Well, I mean, I'm just going to keep saying community, 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 and you're all just going to get tired of it. I mean, honestly, that is, I will continue to say to the day I die, and you can put it on my head, on my tombstone if you want, that the community is really the strength of the language. After that, it's just a combination of things. It's hard to point out, right? It's the fact that it's executable pseudocode because we care about readability and simplicity and documentation and a whole bunch of other things. So honestly, there is not one thing, because it's weird, right? When I started, right, we used to copy things from other languages and then put our own little twist on it, and now we see other languages copying from us now. And it's hard to pinpoint because obviously we have some good ideas that others have taken and some ideas that others haven't. So I don't have a good answer for that one thing other than community, as I said. As for the thing I would change that drives me nuts, Pablo and I wrote a PEP that we withdrew because so many people didn't like that idea, but I still think it's a good idea, and that's getting rid of the bare except clause and force you to specify what the exception is. Because I think a lot of people get caught up that when you don't specify the exception, it's base exception. And I think it would have been better had we made the bare except catch exception instead, but it was a little too late because it was going to make the 2 to 3 transition harder because it wasn't what people expected. So mine is get rid of the bare except clause, which is not going to happen because Pablo and I tried and people said, nah. So I'm just got to live with that one.
So I think what I always like the most about Python is that you can kind of look under the covers. Like the interpreter is rather readable. Didn't get significantly worse over the years, but it's definitely more complex than in the beginning. But one of the benefits of this is that, and it's going to sound ironic, Python is really slow. And that's actually kind of good because it doesn't get any slower if you use introspection. And so you can do amazing things to just, like if you imagine you build a company that has a ton of services running and one of them misbehaves, you can, especially now with remote exec, which best thing ever happened in Python, honestly. It's awesome. But I had hacks like this to do something like to go into process, poke around it. Like essentially the company I worked for was entirely based on an idea that you can call sysgetFrame. And it's awesome because it gives you so much capabilities and you already paid the cost of this. The interpreter is like, that's as fast as it goes and it doesn't get any slower. And that was great. And to what I would change, I still think async await, not the right trade-off. And now there is probably at least some like general interest, maybe not in the Python community yet, but like in general, like people are looking at Project Loom from Java. And it's like, hey, virtual threads is a really cool thing. And we almost had them at one point with Greenlets, just in a horrible way. So maybe this is a thing we could at least experiment with. That's what I'm saying.
Do you mean just async await or the async story?
So we didn't end up in a situation where we have Python 2 and Python 3. So we are only on Python 3 now. But the story doesn't look quite as good for async and sync. So as we're doing right now, we're always going to end up with 2 APIs, sync and async. So it's a colored function problem. And virtual threads is an idea, or virtual thread is a concept where you only have one. And you still have the benefits of async. So that's really, it's the fact that we have to write everything twice that I don't like.
This has been a paid-for political announcement by Mark Shannon. It's not my job on stage to say anything smart. So instead, I'll tell a story. So for the first part, I was with my colleagues at the museum in Amsterdam for the European Space Agency, and we were standing in front of the Mars rover. They're a bunch of Java people. So I say, what language do you think was written to drive this thing? Java, 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 Java. Smug look on my face, just letting them all go. And I say, nope, it was Python. And then I look at the museum person that's giving us the guide, and I said, and it was created like 10 kilometers away. And that guy was just beaming with joy. And so I would say the thing I like the most about Python is it feels now like a 100-year project. Python is going to be around. Now that instills some responsibilities, but to think that it will outlast its creator, it will outlast its little ducklings, it will outlast all the other ducklings, is such a joyful thing for us to all be a part of. What a life we get to live. Now, what would I like to change? This one's easy. Python's web story, we gave up. We sent it over to React to let React do everything. Come back to Python. So I'm really interested in bringing Python's web story back, working with Kodai, working with Lissandros here, and I hope all of us choose to make Python a great place for web.
We'll take the next question. I think you were there.
Yes, thank you. So I am a bit lucky to have started learning Python and working with it in 2014. So I didn't have any nostalgic opinions or any opinions on Python 2. And so for me it was, I'm sorry, but it was a nuisance because some people still use Python 2 when there was Python 3.4 around. So I didn't understand it, but I'm happy that the days are over. So my question is, which Brett a little bit answered already, it's like a double-edged question. What is the thing that you still, to this day, think Python 2 did better and you are sad about it losing it, about Python losing it? And what is the thing that you think we should have broken as well? So since we're doing this 2 to 3 transition, what else should we have done in order not to do it in Python 4, which will never come?
Oh, I have a bucket list. So I go first because this feels like a question for me. So actually, I'm very happy with Python 3 now, but the Unicode story for me entirely unresolved. What did Python? So I was saying Python 2 didn't actually do it better. It's just Python 2 basically deferred it. What is a little bit of a sticking point to me is that Unicode in Python 3 is it uses a encoding called UCS4, so you sacrifice 4 bytes per character. That no other programming languages does that. And we get some benefits out of it, like we can index into certain characters on constant time, but the largest Unicode character can only ever be 21 bits, so almost 50% of the memory is just zeroed out all the time. And so in Python 2, we used to use a lot more UTF-8 as an internal string encoding because there were a lot of these sort of byte strings floating around. And so that to me, wish I would have also broken, just make strings in Python 3, UTF-8 internally. And now we carry UTF-8 pointers sometimes in strings, so it's they're going to be even larger. Anyways, that's my point mostly. I think the Unicode handling, for all the pain that we went through, we didn't go quite far enough.
To be clear, it's only UCS4 when it has to be. It will gradually grow up.
One emoji.
One
will
emoji will kill you, yes. I think I kind of answered this question other than what I missed from Python. Well, I mean, the thing I don't miss anything. I honestly, I have a hard time remembering I remember the pain points, but yeah, I don't remember losing anything that was oh gosh, I wish I had that. I'm kind of a forward-thinking, not nostalgic kind of person, so I'm the wrong person to ask that kind of thing. So I don't miss anything that we lost. Dropped.
Don't ask me, Python 2 is the new one.
Well, in that case, Paolo, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I remember seeing Paul for the first time in a stage speaking about Python in 2007. I was on a Plum conference in Naples, and I was being part of that community a long time ago. So in the last 20 years, I saw a lot of community growing and other community disappearing from the community, the Python community. And thanks also for the effort to welcoming people in the community. A lot of sub-communities started growing. Also for now, with the AI, a lot of new people will show up. So I want to ask you, for your experience, what can be done to avoid that these many communities to sparse too much. So what we can do, in your opinion, to have this community to be together and not to disappear or not to diverge too much, to have a bigger community made of a lot of different people.
I'll give a little bit of a take on it. When data science really got big, I used to joke that 101% of Python users started yesterday. And it can be overwhelming to the existing people. And I say that as someone who kind of made that mistake way back when with Zope. We were part of the Zope conferences, but we had a separate track. And when we did, it was immediately like, we're not part of Python. We're that other thing. And I think that's been, I'll be interested in your opinion on this. It feels like data science was mixed into things a lot better. It didn't feel like that other thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, we've had this story before, as Paul's alluded to, right? Like, I remember the first PyCon after Django came out, and suddenly we were being a bit more into the web space because it was shortly after Rails. And like, oh, wow, maybe we'll be in there. And then suddenly all these web people came in, right? And then there was this, it's like, oh, yeah, you got to go worry about the web story. Don't worry about the scripters. That's the web's where it's going to be, right? And then same with the data science. I can't count the number of people who came like, you got to worry about data science. You got to focus on them. That's where it's going to be, right? And then you're starting to have this with AI and all that. And every time it happens, everyone gets worried. And then everyone just realizes that as long as we continue to be this open, welcoming place where we try to make sure they come into the fold sounds a little too dramatic, but have them come and join the community and be a part of it and realize you can be a part of it. You're using the same thing, and that's what you can all come and talk about, and you just come bring your genuine self and just come participate and be very direct about that. And I think that helps make sure that we have those connections. Now, there's still going to be offshoots, right? Like, I think this past week, SciPy was happening, for instance. And so there's still going to be separate little pockets. DjangoCon still happens. It's its own thing, and that's totally fine. I think as long as we still kind of have these general gathering points, whether it's EuroPython or typically PyCon US in the North American space, as long as we still have that one conference that a lot of us all try to come to and mix and match and get together and just kind of have that cross-pollination while still allowing everyone to go have their little side community stuff, I think will be fine. And we continue to do that because I think, once again, we're such an open, welcoming, and inclusive community that I think it just naturally draws people to want to just be together regardless of why you happen to come to this language.
I was looking at you a little bit funny earlier because I want to give soap as a negative example.
Do it.
No, but I actually, the first year, so obviously I built a web framework, but I was welcomed into the Django community the same year as I went to my first Python conference. And I was using Zope at one point. I was using Zope interface and a bunch of other Zope packages, and there was this pickle database thing that I forgot what it's called. And it was in parts because there was a Zope community in Austria, where I was from. But it was not a Python community, and it was so isolated from it. And I remembered this as, while the Django community is doing this better because they showed up at the Python conference, there was a lot of cross-talking between Django folks and core Python people, and I felt like I like this a lot more. And I actually think that a lot of people were looking at particularly the Django core Python interaction quite positively. And I think that that's probably, we should not sound like this was an accident and sound like this. If you create this new large, if you happen to accidentally have been part of a huge community that uses all Python, there's a benefit to sticking close to core Python, so that you don't create this separate community, because then you end up duplicating a lot of things. And
can I follow up?
Start it, then I gotta follow up after you.
Okay.
Can I follow up? Yeah, can I follow up as well? Sorry, you were asking. Okay.
We're having a mini conference, right? Before we came on stage, Armin was doing the Armin thing over here, vibe coding, of course. Something about F-string syntax. Related to the question, though, you're quite close to the zeitgeist on this. You describe your current job as AI Explorer. Do these people want to be programmers?
So I think I mentioned a couple of times, I think the moment you write code, you're a programmer. And there's a moment where it turns from realization to you actually being one, right? This is sort of like an internal thing. Like if you, I don't know, start painting a picture first time and it's horrible, you don't think of yourself as a painter, but technically you're one, right? And I think the problem is that you sometimes have this communities form that don't know yet that they're a community because they're not clustering together. And it would be good for us to be the start of the cluster for them to come in rather than for them to form their own cluster, because I'm a little bit worried right now that if we are not welcoming of all the people that are doing vibe coding now and whatever it is they're doing, that they create their own cluster, but they don't have necessarily all the expertise. Because like, yeah, it's like we're the old man here on the stage, but like there's a lot of knowledge that we have learned over the years, and we should share this with the new ones, right? Instead of them having to learn everything from scratch because they're sort of outcast in little bubbles on their own. And they don't know that these communities exist. Like the people that sent me emails, they could have figured out that I'm no longer actively maintaining it, and there are other people to go to, but I can also not blame them. And so we have to be sort of this point of pulling them in actively, because it's very hard to recognize what support systems actually exist in existing communities if you don't even know the community exists.
So, I mean, building off of what Armin said, Jacob Kaplan-Moss once said to me that he hoped he would never see someone call themselves a Django developer, but call themselves a Python developer that uses Django. And that's a very key thing about this discussion we're having here about how do we tie everyone together so we feel as a whole, as a community as a whole, right? And I think that ties into the AI thing as well. It's like, are you saying you're a vibe coder, or are you saying you just happen to be a Python coder who uses AI to get the code that you want up and going, right? And I think it's going to be dependent on, it's going to be important for us to make sure people understand that they are welcome here by using the right terms and saying like, no, you're a Python developer. It's just you happen to use this tool that we've all been introduced to that just lets you code in a way that's maybe different than me doing my artisanal coding. Which is fine, right? Once again, I think the community as a whole will be better for it by welcoming people. And I think the key thing is just making everyone understand that, yeah, you're still part of this community regardless of how you happen to get those bits onto whatever machine you got that's executing it, and making it all happen.
I just want, if it comes up again, for my own benefit, for the audience's benefit, would you mind telling us what Zope is? If it comes up again, because you keep talking about it.
I later learned it's a word in Russian that I should have researched. Web applications, the first open source application server.
Thank you. The audience appreciates it, yeah.
I think Armin was thinking of ZODB.
Yes, which is much cooler than he portrayed it.
Yes.
Well, with that said, on the left side of the stage, please.
Hi, one of the main themes of the conference has been community, and I 100% agree. In my personal experience, some of the most meaningful bits have been struggling and learning and sharing knowledge, and I feel like it's important that's between a human and a human. And my question is, with the advent of AI, where it's human and machine, do you see a risk for maintainers or experienced developers not wanting to get back to the community because they're not sure if they're actually talking to another person?
No, because I think it's part of the human condition to want to have that engagement and connection with other people. So you're right. I mean, you hear about this where teams are getting inundated with like AI slop, doing security reports that are bogus and wasting people's time and stuff. But
I don't think any of that's going to stop people from wanting to directly engage. Now, that doesn't mean their code might not be created or facilitated with AI or whatever, but I suspect in general, assuming we don't get inundated with too much slop and it doesn't cause burnout, but that's a separate thing, I think all of us are going to continue to just want to engage. And I think we're just innately, as human beings, going to want to have that communication, conversation, just engagement.
Yeah, I also think that in general, like, there is a benefit of talking to a human. You're going to figure out very quickly if the other thing is a human or not. And the pull requests coming by non-humans is not a new thing. And in some communities has been strongly encouraged for a long time. The Rust community is a good example for this. There's a system called Grader, I think, which basically checks every change to the language if it's going to break very popular dependencies, and usually they're trying to not break them. But sometimes they're like, well, we should break this because it was wrong. And then they come and send you an automated pull request that fixes your library, right? And I'm very happy to get them because it's sort of, like, it's not like, oh, this is a bot, it's not a human, I don't want to talk to it. Usually the bot acts on behalf of some other human, I can reach out to them, right? So I just see this as largely a non-issue. Maybe we'll see if it could turn into one, but I'm kind of ±0 on it.
I'll give a little bit of a similar take on it. Developer advocacy at JetBrains. A few weeks ago, this video went around, this AI-generated video, and the people in that video were attractive, and they could move around, and they were funny, and worst of all, they were tall. And I'm like, this is a problem. We got to talk about this. But we kind of realized pretty quickly that our job will be to put the human in. Always find the human and put the human in. And there might be an even bigger role and a better role for us in the future where we don't do the things we shouldn't do, we do the things we should do, which might come back to your theory of coding.
Nelfi will not care about their height.
For the record, there will be no dancing.
Thank you.
Okay, we can take the next question.
Hi. We've discussed Python 2.3, which has been one of the defining events of Python in its history. I want to ask after another defining event, maybe, which was PEP 5.7.2 and assignment expressions. How did you guys experience that? And looking back at it, how do you feel about that now? And the consequences like Guido stepping down and the steering council being formed?
Yeah, seven expressions. It was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it got blown way out of proportion. I'm sure those will get covered in the documentary when Edith releases it.
The trailer said he said he rage quit.
Yeah, Guido did rage quit. Yeah, it was just a lot of. It was at peak Twitter, back when that website existed. And I think it led to a lot of pile-on, like, oh, other people are speaking their mind, I should get to speak it too. And it kind of promoted just outlandish statements and just, I've said this before, and I don't know if Ida will include it in the documentary or not, but I mean, Guido was kind of heading towards retirement. If you'd asked me then when it happened, like when do I think he might retire, I probably would have said like 3 years or something. But he just said, yeah, screw this. So that sucked for him personally, and it was just not nice. And I will say personally for me, because of the fallout from that, it was extremely stressful and hard. I actually had to go see an ear, nose, and throat specialist because one day I was having lunch with my wife and I was so stressed about us and whether or not the project would survive, I started to choke on my own throat. And luckily I was okay. It was just purely due to stress. And unfortunately I discovered when I'm really stressed, I have a hard time swallowing. But it was hard. Like, the whole world was looking at us, because at that point, Python was a big deal. And it was, as Paul said, it's definitely now probably a 100-year project, but then it was starting to look like it as well. And what the hell are we going to do? And as I've said, I don't want this community to go away. I have friends here. Like I was joking the other day. If I held a birthday party the other day back home in Vancouver, I'd have a couple friends come, but the vast majority of my friends can't make it because they have to fly in from some who knows where just to make it, which is fantastic, but like I don't want to lose that. And so there was a lot of stress that somehow if we couldn't get our acts together and the project collapsed because the world just stopped trusting us because Guido was gone and the rest of us who were core devs couldn't get our acts together, that everyone would just slowly move away and be 2 to 3 except where we did make the transition. So it was hard. Now, luckily it worked out. Like we figured out, honestly, the hardest part was choosing a voting system of all things on how to choose what structure we want to take with the steering council. And I think it's been fine since, but yeah, that roughly, I don't know, 6 months or so, maybe a little less than that, after Guido stepped down was, for me at least personally, really, really hard. It was really tough. But once again, we got through it, and we're better for it. I think the steering council has worked out very nicely. And talk to anyone on the steering council, and they go, oh my God, Guido did this all by himself, and we can barely do it with 5 people. But yeah, it was hard.
It's part of what is Python is an interpreter and the language and the code being written, but there's a conference of a lot of people, right? There's like 320 chapters of PyLadies. How much was it? Like, just imagine what the size of the community is, right? And this is just a lot of humans involved, right? Creating scalable systems is really, really hard. And even just like, you may sound like you need to create a voting system, but like in general, like creating a Python software foundation that is functional, that can collect money, that can somehow fund parts of the language, how to get maintainers be nice to each other is very, very, very hard. And this gets a little bit easier. You have this one figurehead at the top, but it's not sustainable long term, right? Because there's a lot of pressure on that person. And so I think that at least from sort of somewhat outside looking in, this is much healthier than it was for many periods of its life. But this always requires a ton of attention because it is like you don't want to create this system that sort of has a permanent level of fragility that just depends that everybody is sort of sane in it. It needs to support people being sick or people being unhappy, right? So for me, I think that, yeah, it's a defining moment actually looking in, but it's also one that will continue to be something that the language will have to deal with. Like, how do you make sure that everything goes smooth?
I'll be brief, uncharacteristically. First, this is a moment in talking about that transition. This is a moment for me to say thank you to the person I admire the most in the entire world of Python, Brett Cannon.
Thanks, Paul.
Particularly for that moment. And you should go see the keynote he gave around those times about open source maintainers. It's important. I think about the answer to that question in that moment, and right now there's a certain open source CMS that will remain nameless that's going through a founder moment that reminds us it isn't always this way. When I was talking with Ida at the end of recording for the clips, went in my typical Silicon Valley tech overlord zillionaire rant mode, and Guido could have cashed in. By the Silicon Valley scorecard, he's a failure. Would you, to a degree, And he didn't, and here we are. And so a point I would like to make about that moment is Guido also didn't choose the form of his replacement. He said, you figure it out, which in hindsight seems like an interesting, genius kind of move.
Slightly stressful, but yes.
Slightly stressful, and in closing, the best 2 words. What that means is Python is yours now. I am now your supporter. It's your future. You get involved. You make of it what you want. Become the next heroes of Python.
On that wonderful note, let's thank our 3 panelists one more time for spending some time with us. Sadly, that will be it for this session. Keep an eye out for the full documentary coming out by the end of August, and I'll see you soon for the conference closing.